Hey, I'm Cristina Quinn. Welcome back to Try This from the Washington Post. This is the second of 3 classes in our course on gut health. In our first class, we spoke to Dr. Trisha Pasricha about what exactly the gut microbiome is and the role it plays in our digestive health. In this episode, we're going to meet another expert, and we'll go on a journey through the amazing human colon. And find out how the gut microbiome responds to what we eat.
I am Dr. Karen Corbin. I'm an associate investigator at the Advent Health Translational Research Institute. I'm also a registered dietitian, so I care very much about nutrition and your health.
And there's another reason I wanted to chat specifically with Karen about this. She and her team published a first-of-its-kind study in 2023. The study looks at how the gut microbiome reacts to certain foods and how those foods can affect our weight and metabolism. I asked her to set up what led to the study.
We had seen all this literature suggesting in mice that the gut microbiome is essential for managing body weight. So we wanted to prove this in humans. And we knew that there's only one way that your body weight can change. There has to be a change in energy balance, which is basically your checkbook of energy in, energy out, and how that energy is utilized all the way through your body. So we set up a study where we fed people 2 different diets in random order. One was called the Western diet, which is the typical diet that most people in developed countries eat. So lots of sugar, very little fiber, lots of processed foods, versus what we call a microbiome enhancer diet.
The microbiome enhancer diet had lots of whole grains and high fiber foods. It also included nuts, fruits, and veggies. Now, the menus for both diets were 2,000 calories. And for 11 days, one group of participants ate a Western diet, as Karen described, while the other group had the microbiome enhancer diet.
One thing we did on purpose is try to have fairly similar foods, just a different version of the food. So, for example, on a Western diet, it might have been a turkey sandwich with the turkey coming from a very highly processed deli situation, on white bread with some sort of crunchy, salty, fried side item.
Like a chip?
Yeah, some kind of chip. And if there was fruit, for example, it would have been like a fruit cup with the heavy syrup, so it's not the whole fruit. And then the microbiome enhancer diet, what we might do is switch it up to a salad where we cooked a fresh turkey breast and we sliced that, so we eliminate the processing. Then we have all the veggies, which there might have been a little lettuce and tomato on the sandwich, but this salad would have been souped up with like tons of different veggies. And then we would add things to the salad like barley or some sort of grain.
Participants were tasked with eating each diet for 11 days. And over that time, they were monitored under surveillance for 23 hours a day at the metabolic ward at Advent Health in Orlando, Florida.
It's a very nice facility. You should come visit. Lots of windows, lots of sunshine, very caring staff.
During the study, every minute of the day was scheduled: treadmill time, desk time, and sleep. This also meant every calorie consumed and burned was accounted for. And each participant swallowed a radio transmitter capsule. That capsule was how they could get some very important data. It measured how long it took a participant to poop after their meals.
So it's extremely, extremely precise because we needed to know if the microbes were changing energy balance. We had to start with the right number to begin with of the energy.
I'm dying to know how you were able to measure the metabolic output in these rooms. Was it through breath? How did you do it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of engineering that goes behind all of this. But basically, burning energy is a process of measuring how much oxygen goes in and how much carbon dioxide is produced. Everything's collected through the ceiling, and it goes into this massive engineering process for us to get these very precise measurements.
Was there any sense of what these rooms smelled like? Like, did the Western diet rooms smell a certain way versus the gut microbiome enhancer diet rooms?
So we actually did a first in human measurement of total daily methane production. So we re-engineered our calorimeter so we could pick this up because we wondered if that was another way to lose calories. Just they go out as methane. So we found that about half of our participants produced appreciable methane. And then on the microbiome enhancer diet, they tended to produce more. But it's interesting because, I'm sure those rooms of the methane producers did not smell great.
Okay, let's just call it what it is, Karen. You had a fart meter. You just need
listen, no, and we actually did use a fart meter because to validate the methane, we used some lasers at the University of Central Florida to measure the methane in a totally different way. And that's literally what that was.
Wow. Okay. All right. No stone left unturned. This is scientific rigor. I love it.
That's how we operate.
So after measuring all of these inputs and sometimes unpleasant smelling outputs, what did Karen Corbin's team discover? We'll fill you in after the break. After closely monitoring their participants, Karen and her team learned how the microbes in our gut respond to a diet heavily made up of ultra-processed foods and a diet rich in fiber and whole foods. And here's what they found.
So you can feed people the same amount of calories at the mouth, 2,000 of a Western, 2,000 of a microbiome enhancer diet. And on the microbiome enhancer diet, as compared to the Western diet, people absorbed 116 fewer calories a day on average. And we know this because the calories ended up in the poop. So they were being excreted. Now, that doesn't sound like a big number, but over a year, that's 42,000 calories that you ate, but you didn't absorb.
And it turns out it's a good thing for us not to absorb some of the calories we eat because we need fiber and other less easily digested parts of food to feed, you guessed it, our microbes.
So when we eat, most foods are digested and absorbed in the small intestine. There's a few things that bypass digestion and absorption in the small intestine and travel all the way down to the colon. And those few things are these non-digestible carbohydrates like fiber and resistant starch. We do not have the machinery to digest those. So they have an energy value, but not to us, at least on the initial route to the colon. Then when the microbes see these, they ferment them and they make other things with energy like short chain fatty acids. And then that energy is either going to go in or out. It doesn't disappear, right? It has to go into the person or it has to be excreted. We have to think back to the fact that energy is the currency of life, right? So there is no way that biology would spend all this time creating trillions of microbes that live in our body. So clearly there's a purpose for this stuff. And basically, these microbes depend on us to feed them. If we eat diets that are mostly absorbed and digested by us, they will starve.
So we need undigested parts of food like fiber and resistant starches, which we'll explain further in the next episode, to make it to our large intestine. And as Karen puts it, a diet heavy with ultra-processed foods won't let that happen. Eating mostly ultra-processed foods will starve your microbes because stuff like packaged cookies and boxed mac and cheese easily break down in your digestive tract. And if it's easy for us to break down, it's harder for us to feed those gut microbes. And we want well-fed microbes because that means we'll have a more diverse, more balanced gut microbiome. In the end, Karen and her colleagues saw that the microbiome enhancer diet effectively worked.
The number of microbes was much larger, about 8 times larger, but it's a pretty big increase.
It sounds big. It sounds like a huge increase, actually.
It's big. So some of the energy, rather than us reabsorbing it, which is generally the fate of the energy that's fermented and produced in the colon, most of it we absorb. But some of that went to making more microbes that did good things for our bodies.
Things like producing energy sources like short-chain fatty acids and secreting hormones that make us feel full and satisfied after eating, like GLP-1.
So now we have a starting point for saying it's possible that microbes have some impact on human body weight. And this is one way that they're doing that is by changing how many calories we absorb. So some people absorb 82% of the energy and some absorbed 90 some plus percent of the energy. And we think that's very interesting because maybe some people, no matter how much you feed the gut microbes, are still really good at taking all that energy back in. And some people are able to shunt it in a different direction. And could that contribute to obesity in some way? Maybe not in a huge way, but part of many things that can impact obesity. Could that differential absorption be important? And that's what we are hoping to study next.
The team at Advent Health is just getting started and are hopeful that this research could lead to a greater understanding of the tiny overlords that live in our colon.
That's a very fundamental and important question to continue to understand. How can we optimize the health of your gut microbes to optimize our health and our body weight?
And we'll lay out what to eat, what to avoid, and how to keep those microbes happy in our last episode. But first, recap. In the study that Karen worked on at Advent Health, she and her team found that eating a microbiome enhancer diet, aka a diet of whole foods with lots of fiber and resistant starches, does a few things. It reduces the amount of calories our bodies absorb. It allows more undigested parts of food, like fiber, to make it to our colons. And it fosters an environment inside your body that helps gut microbes multiply. This all means that the microbiome could play a role in regulating weight by shifting how we create and expend energy. And most importantly, farts can be measured with lasers. That's it for our second episode. Coming up in our final episode, we're going to hear more from Dr. Karen Corbin and from our favorite gastroenterologist, Dr. Pastrica, about the changes you can make in your diet with things you may already have in your pantry. We'll get into whether probiotics are worth your time, and we'll find out what the future of gut health could look like. Okay, 2 things before I sign off. The second one is a new way to keep learning and for me to learn from you. First, as always, if you are listening when this is newly released, the next episode will be out next week. In this case, specifically on Tuesday, July 8th. But you can hear the final class right now and ad-free with a subscription to The Washington Post. You just need to connect your Post subscription to Apple Podcasts. And the easiest way to do that is to go into Apple Podcasts and look up the Washington Post channel. Now, on to the second thing. The things I learned in working on the show really do change how I think and do things day to day. I keep learning as time goes on, and I also hear from family, friends, and listeners about what they're trying. So I want to share more with you, and I want a better way to share what you find beneficial. In a few weeks, we're launching a Try This newsletter, and I want to know what works for you and your gut microbes. We could include your advice in the newsletter and a future episode of Try This. Tell me what items you've swapped out for healthier alternatives. Record a voice memo or send me a note at trythis@washpost.com. Please be sure you give me your whole name and how you spell it. The email address again is trythis@washpost.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll meet you in our third and final class.